I'm Yvonne Hamoud, registered social worker and owner of New Moon Counseling. But out of the office, I'm a mom, wife, daughter, sister, and friend. Join me each week as I sit with a special guest to discuss everyday things that impact our mental health. We'll be chatting about everything from mental health and relationships to media and current events, as well as personal experiences and reflections, all in the hopes of normalizing our humanness and helping you see that you're not alone. This is Outside the Therapy Room. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Outside the Therapy Room. Today, I have Wendy Gage here with me. Hi, Wendy.
Hi,
How are you today?
I'm excited to be here.
I'm so happy and excited to have you here. Today, we are going to be talking about something that maybe many mothers experience, but it isn't talked about nearly enough, which is ADHD in motherhood. And so, before we get really going into the topic, I would love for you to introduce yourself to our listeners.
Sure, I'm Wendy and I'm a registered social worker. I have been in practice for just a little over 30 years. I would say my whole career has centered around people with brain differences. Um, as a baby social worker, I started at the Hospital for Sick Children in neurology, and then I worked for almost a decade with people who had car accidents, primarily with people who had brain injury. And then when I went into private practice, I had this whole skill set that I didn't quite know what to do with, and started realizing that the skill set really transferred well into ADHD.
Mhm.
I'm also a adult who is diagnosed with ADHD, and I have two children with ADHD. So it's not just been my professional life; it's also been my personal life. So it's kind of always been around me, to be working with people that maybe something to do with what's going on in their brain impacts the way that they express themselves, the way that they regulate emotion, the way that they behave and interact with people. So it felt very natural to kind of be doing this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and because we are outside the therapy room, we always like to invite our guests to tell us a little bit about themselves outside of their profession.
So
So tell us a little
I
bit.
would say that I work in a practice that has to do with family for good reason and has to do with parents for good reason, because a big part of who I am is also a parent. I have two kids. They're not little anymore. They're 17 and 21.
Mm.
And that's kind of a big part of who I am. When your kids get that old, though, you get your life back a little bit. So
Hmm.
I am finding myself going back to things I did before I had children. So I sing and I dance, and it's fun dancing because I dance with a bunch of old women who have teenage and young adult children, and
Hmm.
we love to connect together and dance like we used to, but we all ache a little bit more than we used to.
I love that. I have two kids, but they're actually my oldest is turning 10 in a few weeks, and a 7-year-old. So that's what I have to look forward to as they get
It
older,
actually
a little bit
happens.
more
There's a
independence.
time where you can like have a bit of your life back, but there's also
Yeah.
this kind of in between place where you don't know what to do with yourself because you're so used to the intensity of they
Hmm.
really need you, and your life is really centered around that. So
Yeah.
kind of a
Yeah.
interesting transition in my life right now. Mhm.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here. I think motherhood already asks us to juggle so much emotional labor, mental labor. We're planning, there's constant like demands on us, especially in those early years, before we kind of get back some of that independence. But when ADHD is part of the picture, that load can often feel a lot heavier.
Yeah.
And so many women, as you pointed out, it is your experience as well, are diagnosed maybe in adulthood, maybe after they've become mothers themselves. And ADHD symptoms can sometimes intersect with postpartum mental health complexes, in some ways. And so, to kind of get started, how does
Mhm.
ADHD typically show up in mothers specifically?
Okay. Yeah. Well, it often becomes quite a collision for moms with ADHD, whether they were diagnosed before or whether motherhood triggered a diagnosis. Um, if you're an adult with a diagnosis and you've gotten this far in your life with ADHD without a diagnosis, you probably have some strategies that you've used to compensate for the areas where you struggle. So
Mhm.
even if you're not diagnosed, people sort of naturally find ways to cope with the ADHD problems. And what we see with mothers is that stuff doesn't work anymore. It's
Mhm.
just like everything kind of falls apart. So what you see, and what you see in all mothers is all the things you just described, right? All that, the load. There's a lot of new learning involved in being a mom,
Mhm.
and it comes at you fast. And the consequence of not learning those things is that you could, let down a baby, your baby, right?
Yeah.
So that's really scary for all of us. We're really learning as we're doing when we're becoming moms, but for ADHD moms, um, it just really becomes such a crisis as far as their ability to cope, as far as their ability to adapt to motherhood. And what we see is a lot of shame, a lot of embarrassment, because it's usually around things that don't feel particularly difficult. It's not
Mhm.
around like the hard tasks, it's around the really annoying, easy tasks. But not being able to do simple things can really grind away at how you feel about yourself at a time when
Yeah.
most of us don't feel confident, right? When we become moms.
Yeah, there's so much insecurity we're already facing as new moms and trying to figure it all out on the go. And so, yeah, those challenges with those small tasks just maybe feed into that insecurity that we are already feeling.
Right. Exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah. Have you found, like in your profession with your clients that maybe you work with, that there's women that are diagnosed with ADHD after they become mothers?
Yeah, absolutely. I think
Hmm.
there's been a little bit of a shift, although there's also a back wave to every new shift, right? Whenever there's been a major way of looking at things that's starting to change. So, we used to always look at people with mental health with just this one lens of what's going on in their mood and
Hmm.
treating mood disorder. But now we're understanding that neurodivergence and neurotype affects mood. They affect each other.
Yeah.
And if you have mood problems and you have ADHD, if you don't treat the ADHD and you just treat the mood problems, now you're just helping that person feel good about things they can't do well.
Hmm.
And that so we do see a little more awareness um, within the medical community, a little more like, are we looking at a mood disorder, are we looking at postpartum anxiety and depression, or are we looking at ADHD, and is that the reason why this person is feeling so anxious because they can't do
Hmm.
some of the tasks that most people would consider to be pretty basic tasks to learn. They can't do those things, and that's leading to all of this anxiety. This is leading to all of this insecurity, or this they're down in the dumps about themselves because they can't do things that most people can do.
Yeah, yeah, that's so challenging. And it is interesting that you say that, right? A lot of people are wanting support for the mood and they don't realize, like, if it's a undiagnosed ADHD, it may be more of these are the experiences I'm having, these are the symptoms I'm having to anxiety, and that's treated. But instead of like really looking deeper at understanding why the anxiety is showing up and those
Yeah.
pressures.
Like if
Yeah.
you can't, for example, like when I think about when I was a young mom and I was treated for postpartum depression and given
Hmm.
meds, and I was in a group and I really liked the people in my group, but I was like, I don't always feel crappy. I don't
Hmm.
always feel like you're feeling like they were describing like these really cloudy days all the time. And I was like, there's some days where I feel like I am just on top of the world. I'm so happy to have a kid. It's great.
Yeah.
And there's other days I'm not. And things that were happening to me that I couldn't talk about were like, I can't, I can't pack a bag to go out into the community with all the things.
Hmm.
And because I can't pack a bag to go out into the community with all the things, all of these crises keep on happening out in the community. Like I remember
Yeah.
myself walking, my son had soiled, I don't know how many onesies, and I didn't have enough diapers. So we ran out of diapers, not enough in the bag, not enough onesies for a change in the bag. And I'm going through the mall with my son in a baby carrier, hoping that no one knows he's naked and
Hmm.
worrying also, if he goes on me, this is the only change of clothes I got. Like I might not just have to get him diapers and clothes, I might have to get me clothes too. And what if
Yeah.
someone sees me walking through the mall with a naked baby in a carrier? Like surely they're going to call the children's aid and take him away from me. Right. And
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
just embarrassed about like who, and then that, not just that that happened once, that happened weekly. And what's
Hmm.
wrong with me that I can't get that to happen? Right. And it's really hard to
Yeah.
feel good about yourself when you can't do something basic like that. And those are the
Yeah.
things we see with our population all the time.
Hmm.
No one
Yeah.
wants to talk about it because it's like,
There's shame
because
around it.
people, there's shame around it. People look at you
Yeah.
like, what's wrong with you? Like, it's just a diaper bag. Just pack it the night before.
Right.
It's like, oh, well, yeah, I've been trying that and it doesn't seem to work for me. And I don't know why.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like easier said than done, but even that isn't the full solution. There's like
It's a
something else
brain
there.
difference. It's an executive
Yes.
problem difference that's at
Yeah.
play. And of course, my mood is affected.
Of course.
I can't feel like I can't do a basic, that's what we see, women feeling like they can't do basic mom things.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, like the way you described it, it was like such a visual that even just without an ADHD diagnosis or even without some of those symptoms, all moms feel like a worry or a fear of the perception other people are going to have of them as a mother. And so add on top of that everything else and just finding it really difficult to actually execute things the way you're being told to is just, yeah, it kind of adds more into that insecurity and that kind of sense of something's wrong with me. What's wrong with me? As you know, like ADHD, I think for if we're looking at kids, can really be focused on like hyperactivity. And that's kind of like the image that sometimes is slapped on ADHD when that's not actually the whole truth. And so, how does ADHD present differently in women versus the stereotypical way that we've seen ADHD perceived
Right.
as?
So I should also say, like, everyone's really gung ho on this sort of like everyone's got ADHD these days, and that's
Yeah.
not true. But
Yeah.
what we do know is this: in 2013, the diagnostic criteria for adults changed in
Mm-hmm.
the latest edition of the DSM, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that means that you don't have to meet as many criteria as you did before, as many symptoms as you did before. That means that there's more people that could be diagnosed, and the
Mm-hmm.
age at which symptoms onset happened was moved from 7 to 12. So that's first of all, that's why there's more people, and in
Mm-hmm.
particular, more women being
Yeah.
diagnosed. But since 2013 as well, there's been a lot of research on women in particular, some great big studies that have really been looking at women and girls. So hyperactivity does happen in girls, but it tends to be fine motor, not gross motor. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
underneath the table. It's like playing with your hair. It's like picking your skin. It's like playing with your cuticles, biting your nails. It's really fine motor and not particularly noticeable. And when
Mm-hmm.
it grows up from childhood, it could continue to be those things. But very often it becomes then like mental hyperactivity and verbal hyperactivity. We can talk a lot if we're hyperactive and female, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you see this sort of difference, and it doesn't create the alarm bells that hyperactivity in boys, which is gross motor, tends to tends to present. So what
Yeah.
we also see is the effect of masking for girls. Girls'
Mm-hmm.
parents and teachers notice that they're different, but they tend to attribute it to the girl. So what we
Right.
see in women with ADHD is like very low self-esteem. There's something wrong with me. You might see a lot of apologizing for
Mm-hmm.
like kind of normal things that everybody does, but you see like apologies over apologies. I'm so sorry. It's sort of like always having to make an excuse for themselves. Um, so you'll see mental hyperactivity. You'll see a lot of ruminating. Although it's not part of the diagnostic criteria, everyone in the ADHD world agrees that emotional regulation is a big piece of this too.
Yeah.
So you'll see big emotions, and what looks like wouldn't be regulated in a neurotypical person might
Hmm.
be. Those big emotions might be within the window of tolerance for an ADHD person. So
Right.
big emotion, you'll see, we'll also see like the executive function difficulties, trouble being on time, trouble organizing things, trouble having all the things that you need to have in order to complete a task, right?
Hmm.
Um, you might see variable performance. So some days are great, some days are really good, and other days not
Mm.
so good, depending on how their nervous system is doing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a lot of information to kind of recognize it's been recent that these things have kind of come to focus, right?
Mhm. Women more than men are much more likely to have been misdiagnosed with a mood
Yes.
disorder. And even when diagnosed, women are more less likely than men to receive medication for it.
Yeah.
And we in our practice, because we work with birthing and lactating moms,
Hmm.
we have found that um, physicians are really, really reluctant to medicate moms who are lactating,
Yeah.
which, although the research doesn't suggest that it's problematic, there's still a lot of stigma around the treatment, right? Because
Hmm.
it's their stimulants, right? And this
Yeah.
idea that like their uppers, that sort of um, way of even talking about the treatment for ADHD is still out there. So
And then it's just so fear-based for the mom then to want to
you're gonna hurt your
advocate for
baby.
themselves. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Oh my goodness. So with some of the symptoms that you mentioned,
Mhm,
women feeling
mhm.
more, um, what symptoms would you say are maybe a little bit more noticeable when somebody does become a parent?
Um, one of the other things that we know that's different for women with ADHD than men for ADHD is the role of estrogen
Mhm.
in their ADHD, right? So estrogen blocks dopamine. So at times when estrogen is low, sorry, estrogen is protective of dopamine. So when it's high, our dopamine is higher, and when
Mhm.
dopamine is higher, ADHD symptoms will be less noticeable. So
Mhm.
at times when women's estrogen is low, so this occurs during puberty, this occurs in the luteal phase of your period. So even over the
Yeah.
course of the month, you might see this variable. I'm okay at the beginning of the month, but I'm not so good here in this time, right?
Yeah.
You'll see postpartum. So that's sort of like just after baby's born period. Lactation also lowers estrogen, lowers dopamine, and then
Mhm.
going into perimenopause. So what we see for women is, first of all, here now you're in a new situation with a baby and you got lots to learn and it's super scary and you're sleep deprived also.
Yes.
You have all these like boring, repetitive, non-gratifying tasks that you have to do on a regular basis, which is death for an
Mhm.
ADHDer. We like interesting things.
Yeah.
Um, and also your dopamine is low and in your boots at a time when you've got so much to learn. So like this is
Yeah.
you see crisis
Yeah. Like a tornado of things all at once.
all at once.
Yeah.
And oh, your doctor's not going to treat you with medication, even though gold standard treatment for ADHD is medication plus strategies. Your
Yeah.
doctor's not going to be open to a conversation, even if you're tanking.
Yeah.
It's really
Yeah.
hard.
It is so hard. And I mean, not to mention like sensory overload. You're dealing with a baby, maybe multiple kids. They're loud. There's a lot going on. I'm like looking right now at my living room. Things are a mess from before the kids went to school. Like there's so much that's happening. And so to add on to everything that you just mentioned and then feeling the sensory overload, it's
And
so
I'm
difficult.
appreciating you bringing that up, right? Because
Yeah.
we know for women with ADHD, this is another feature of it, right?
Yeah.
Is where we often kind of associate sensory processing problems with autism. We know that sensory processing problems, particularly in women with ADHD, are also can be also very notable and different than in autism. In ADHD, it's variable. So I'm okay now, but I'm not okay
Mhm.
then, right? So
Yeah.
that can really feel like, to outsiders, like, you were okay before. You just like, are you choosing to be like this? Or, and it's not,
Right.
it's like it's this sort of variable nervous system that is different at different times. Yeah.
But it
And
can be
babies are a
so
lot, right?
they are, I mean, yes. And also as they get older and they start talking and walking, it becomes a whole other challenge. But I think it's such like there can be so much self blame then in those cases, right? Where it's like, why does everything feel harder for me? Why was I okay this morning, but I'm not now? Or why was I feeling a little bit better yesterday and not now? And so it's
And
a lot.
systemic blame too, right?
Yes.
Like rather than, we kind of have this very neuronormative way of what a good mom is, right?
Yeah.
I remember seeing this Instagram, and this woman was wearing, I swear to God, she was wearing a handmade dress that could have been Snow White's dress, but it was white. And she was baking. She was baking blueberry muffins for her children. And I was like, and her kitchen was white and spotless. And
Hmm.
she was white and spotless. And her children were also white and spotless, sitting at a table eating blueberry muffins handmade by mommy,
Yeah.
quietly and cleanly. And I was like, okay, like I am a blueberry crime scene if this is me.
Yeah. Same.
Right. and and it is not looking like this, right? So like we have
Yeah.
like this kind of like procured version of what good motherhood is, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And for most moms, nobody's meeting that part, and that video is heavily, heavily edited.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
Right? Because at some point, most moms might even be throwing the blueberry muffins,
Yeah.
right?
Or it's a
Um,
flower
or the
explosion.
kids like spitting it out and saying it's gross. I don't
Yes.
like it. Right?
Oh
Like
gosh.
those are the realities, but we're not seeing
Yes.
that, right? We're seeing this very procured version of what motherhood
Hmm.
looks like. And if you're an ADHD mom, there's nowhere on the map you can get with that, right?
Yeah. Well,
Right?
there's so much of that comparison. And then again, I'm not doing
Not good
enough. I'm
enough.
not being a good enough
Yeah.
mom.
And when
Yeah.
so much of like you started asking me outside of the room, and I told you about my identity is connected to being a mom.
Hmm.
And for a lot of women who are moms, that's the truth. They've thought about being a mom long before, when they were playing with their dolls at age 4 or 5, thinking about when I become a mom. Their
Yeah.
identity is already growing before they've even had a child or met the person they're going to have a child with. And
Right.
when mothering is connected to our goodness as a human, goodness as a person, and we can't do it and can't get anywhere close to how you're supposed to do it, it's really hard to feel good
Hmm.
about yourself. And
Hmm.
what we see with our ADHD moms is they also isolate. And I certainly
Right.
did that too, right? Like you end up, I went to this group and I talked about things, but I would never tell them about the story about my child naked in the carrier,
Hmm.
because I would be afraid that the facilitators would call the Children's Aid Society and I would lose
Yeah.
my child and that no one would help me. And then in the dark like that, in the
Hmm.
isolation like that, like we just metastasize, right? Like we just like get worse and worse and we go
Hmm.
down more and more. We never have the opportunity. Like I can share that story now with a lot of humor.
Yeah.
I share that story freely with people to say, I have been there in that place and you're not alone. And it's not because
Hmm.
you're a bad mom. In fact, you're
Hmm.
freaking out when this is happening because you're a good mom and you can't get there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, you kind of brought it up with your own experience, the intersection between ADHD and postpartum mental health. I think, like you pointed out, many women experience anxiety, depression, burnout after birth. There's those hormonal changes that are happening, those fear of judgments, the comparisons, everything that can kind of intensify that experience. But then throw on ADHD on top of that. Um, how can ADHD impact postpartum mental health?
So there has been some studies that are done. This was a huge population study done in Sweden,
Mhm.
2018, I think it was. where they just took all the health data and they just cross-referenced postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, and ADHD diagnosis. So this is only within the population already diagnosed with ADHD women.
Mm-hmm.
25% more chance of having postpartum anxiety and 20% more having depression.
Mm.
So much higher risk of having mood disorders postpartum as a
Yeah.
result of having ADHD for all the reasons that we're talking about here, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and not always well detected and not always well treated, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
it's fine if I'm not feeling as anxious about the diaper bag, but if I'm ending up in the mall with a naked baby who might poop on me on a weekly basis, at some point my anxiety meds are not going to help me. I'm going to continue to feel worried about that situation happening, right?
Right. Yeah, and it sounds like in your experience, you were also put into was it a postpartum depression group,
Yeah,
and even being put into that group when you don't really fully feel the symptoms or the same stories that other women are sharing, it can again kind of lead to that isolation. And so when there is maybe the what is it called, like misdiagnosis and being put into certain groups, it can just kind of add on to that feeling of isolation.
absolutely. Absolutely. And the
Yeah.
hiding and also the
Yeah.
faking, like I was faking good patient. Oh yes, the medication's working for me. It was not. Um,
Hmm.
oh yes, that happens to me. So then you're like kind of like I was in the group and I wanted to connect with this group, but I kind of I'm like an imposter here. Like I doesn't
Yeah.
my stories aren't quite the same as yours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. And
Yeah.
so it's tricky. And then sleep deprivation, as you pointed out. How does that affect ADHD symptoms?
So there's also an increased incidence of sleep disorders amongst people with ADHD.
Yeah.
So a couple of things that are very common, things like restless leg syndrome,
Mm.
and big one is like a shift in circadian rhythm. So it's not just the amount of hours you sleep that help you out, it's when you sleep. So
Right.
generally somewhere between around 11 p.m. ish go to sleep
Hmm.
and 7 a.m. ish wake up, but ADHDers often don't feel sleepy at 11 p.m. and don't want to wake up at 7 a.m.
Hmm.
So that circadian rhythm delay is pretty common for ADHDers, not all. Um, and then you add in the disrupted sleep that comes with a newborn baby. And we do know generally for all of us, when we have adequate sleep, we also have kind of adequate brain function, right? So
Yeah.
your executive function, even if you're neurotypical and you are sleep deprived, is not going to operate the same way or operate as well.
Hmm.
It can get really bad for ADHD moms. And then there's like losing it. It's like they can't manage it, falling apart at the seams emotionally.
Yeah.
Small tasks take you down. It feels like you're kind of parenting on like level impossible, right? Like you got the
Mm.
big boss of the game, but it's the first thing that you got, and you
Yeah.
got to try to beat it. It's too much, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, just extremely overwhelming.
Yeah. So we can see
Yeah.
sleep crises as well. We can also see self-care crises. So we know that all moms will kind of like put themselves aside in service of their baby. And that's
Hmm.
like, that makes sense biologically. That's how we protect our baby.
Yeah.
Right. But for ADHD moms, that self-care deprivation is like really deep. Like I've had moms who haven't peed all day. I had one mom that came on the screen at the end of the day and she had wet herself
Mm.
because because she hadn't been able to prioritize going to the washroom that day. Like,
Yeah.
and that is like heartbreaking, right? An adult woman who wet herself because
Hmm.
she couldn't listen to her body well enough to say, and I deserve to go pee, right?
Yeah. I mean,
So
if
we'll
we're
see that.
looking,
Not eating, not
yeah,
showering, not brushing your teeth, all of it. Really
like the
bad.
basic self-care. Yeah. Kind of goes out the window.
Not sleeping. I can't go to
Yes.
sleep. The baby might wake up, right? And we see
Yeah.
that with neurotypical moms as well. It's just like so much more intense when you've got ADHD.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are some of the signs that maybe a mom might be dealing with ADHD and a postpartum struggle rather than just normally adjusting with an ADHD diagnosis?
It's like the $1,000,000 question that I get asked every single day. How do I know if it
Yeah.
is this or if it's that, right?
Yes.
I'm always looking for how much is your executive function playing a role in this? And are the anxiety and disorder problems a result of that? Same thing would be like with what looks like OCD, right?
Hmm.
Like I've got all these routines or I've got all these things I have to do, these checklists in my brain or outside of my brain. And if I don't do those things, it's going to be bad. And I
Right.
always say, when you stop doing those routines, does life get better or worse? And if the answer is worse, then that might be a compensation for ADHD and executive function problems, not true OCD, right?
Hmm.
And same thing with anxiety. Like if you don't yell at yourself internally to get off the couch and do the thing, do you do the thing?
Hmm.
No. I sit on the couch and I think about doing the thing all day long, but I don't do the thing,
Right.
right? And the thing was really important, and something bad happened because I didn't do the thing.
Mm. Yeah. So I guess, for women, we talk a lot about like needing to advocate for yourself in the healthcare system. And it sounds like that's just kind of an additional thing now that we have to continue in motherhood when we are trying to at least recognize and I think from what you're saying, it sounds like that's a very difficult thing to do, to already recognize something's off, I'm not able to do things as well as other people. But then to kind of be met, with a family physician who's maybe also not knowledgeable enough in that area to be able to give a formal diagnosis can just box some women or mothers into one thing and not get the right support that they need.
This is definitely a thing these days. Everyone's got ADHD, and the answer is no, not everybody's got ADHD.
Yeah.
Um, so I know when we have women come into our practice, that sometimes we're coaching them. Sometimes we're also, if you have a professional that you're working with, if you're with a therapist and that therapist is saying, I really am questioning about ADHD here.
Hmm.
Um, any professional, you don't have to be a psychologist to do this, can say, well, let's do the ASRS. You can get it
Hmm.
for free online. It's the ADHD self report scale. It's a screener that's used for ADHD. Do that and write a quick letter to the doctor saying, I've been thinking about whether ADHD is a factor for my client, and write a quick letter. I did the SRS on them, and these were the results of their questionnaire. And that
Hmm.
can sometimes help give the endorsement that the client needs to be able to have maybe a bigger conversation with their doctor about whether
Yeah.
the treatment plan needs to include looking at ADHD or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's also on CADDAC, CADDAC, which is like the Canadian consumer-based ADHD support group.
Hmm.
There's a, there's a big a document called ADHD in Women and Girls, and it's got some really great quotes in there about misdiagnosis that I will sometimes say, go get that document and use this quote for your doctor, or just pull it out and say, this is what
Yeah.
I was thinking over here. What do you think? And to try to spark a conversation with them.
Yeah.
It is hard. And I don't think I think we expect to go to the doctor often, and, you know, they're going to listen to us, but we can also be faced with some of their own bias or their own
Hmm.
defensiveness. They might feel like you're trying to make your own diagnosis and not listen to them. So you can kind of get into this
Yeah.
position with your physician that makes it hard for you to get that treatment
Hmm.
and that help, right?
Yeah, like an extra resistance towards getting the support that you need, which is unfortunate. But it sounds like there's really great resources out there to kind of provide that extra support. And if you
Absolutely.
do have like a therapist, like we are always happy to write a letter to like, just enforce, hopefully, like the need for, a kind of different view around a possible diagnosis.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Right. And
Mhm.
getting that support for our clients is something that makes us feel good, right? And
It
as
does.
therapists, we want that for them, right?
We do. Yeah, that's our whole thing. We want to support our clients.
Totally.
But how does shame then? I mean, we talked a little bit about shame before, just in terms of how it can show up in certain groups, communicating with other moms, trying to build that mom group community. But how does shame kind of show up just in motherhood with women who have ADHD?
Yvonne, I just want to appreciate how much you've done your homework here because you're just asking great questions.
Oh, thank you.
I really love the questions you're asking. I'm like, she's done her homework. She's thinking about the check boxes here.
Oh
Right.
yeah.
So, ableism and neuronormativity play a role in here, right? So neuronormativity is like this sort of set of rules and social norms, and they're kind of unspoken, implicit rules, sometimes explicit, like our school board will mark how often you're late, for example, right? That there's these rules that kind of say this is the right way to be, this is the right way to behave, this is the right way to think, this is the right way to operate, and this is the right way to parent,
Mm,
right? And so it's, you know, ADHD has two D's in it,
yeah.
right? Deficit and disorder. Like, let's just hammer down this message. There's something wrong with you by putting two D's, not just one in the diagnosis. Um,
Mm,
and and also that the ways that you might behave as an ADHD are not within this sort of neuronormative, this is the way to be a good mom, right? And so what we see with shame is like what might make life functional for an ADHD mom might not be part of that neurotypical or neuronormative thing. But
mm,
no one's diagnosing, like no one's saying having everything in order and having a schedule that runs in the background for you is a disordered state of being, right?
mhm,
No one's saying that those things that are, maybe more neurotypical are disordered. We're saying this is disordered. And
right.
instead of saying this is different. So when we might need to modify our lives in order to function and be the best we can be, right? We may
Mhm,
feel ashamed, or we may not even feel entitled to ask for what we need or to engage in what we need to optimize our lives, right?
mhm,
Yeah. So I think I keep on thinking of this mom who she was holding her baby, but she was really overstimulated by him and she really wanted to be present. And so she was also, because she was so overstimulated by him, she had one earbud in her ear where she was controlling her environment by listening to the kind of music she wanted to listen to. She was putting input into her nervous system that
mhm.
helped her nervous system regulate better. And she said, am I doing something bad? I don't think I'm being present enough. And I said to her, honey, I think you're being more present because you're doing that. But
Yeah.
that's the kind of thing. Or someone say, I did this strategy and it didn't quite work. So I tweaked it this, I had to do it. And it's like they're saying it like it's something bad. So then I had to do it this way. And I was like, can I just hold up for a second here? Because what I'm hearing you say is you tried that thing on and it didn't quite fit. So you did an alteration that did fit,
Yeah.
right? Like, that is brilliant that you did that. You listened to yourself,
Mhm.
and rather than just trying to like fit yourself into something that didn't quite fit, you modified it so it was a fit and now it works for you. That's brilliant. But what we
Mhm.
see is like people not even seeing their competency when they're being competent. And when they're
Yeah.
doing something that is not just serving themselves, it's actually serving their relationships better because
Mhm.
they're able to function better, even if it's not neuronormative.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
like
that
that's
shame kind of blocks it, right?
it does. Yeah. And I think it's people are trying to like fit into a box sometimes, but that box isn't necessarily an appropriate box. It wasn't designed in a way for everybody to kind of fit into it. And it can be really, that's where like this pressure can come from of like, well, I don't fit in this box. So something's wrong with me, not looking at the box and be like, oh, something's wrong with the box.
Oh, yeah, the box is a problem, right? And
The
then they would
box
talk
is a
about the
problem.
box with other moms, right? So like
Yes.
we hear that a lot, right? Oh, well, I go to the mom group, but like everybody's doing so well and so fine. And I can't talk to them about what's happening for me because sometimes I try to talk to them about what's happening for me and they give me stupid advice. Everyone thinks I'm stupid. I'm not stupid. Like when
Mhm.
I'm saying, I don't know how to do the thing, whatever it is, right? Like I keep on buying organic stuff with the intention of making food for my child that's healthy. But now I just have a crisper of rotting organic stuff every week. And then I tell people that, and they say, well, why don't you just? And it's like they tell me something that's not rocket science, and I already know I should just do whatever it is,
Yeah.
but I can't actually do it. It's not that I don't know I should do it. I can't do it. I can't act, I can't perform it, right? So that
Mhm.
also, in relation to other moms, it causes ADHD moms to isolate from other moms. And like, we need that. We so
Mhm.
need that, right? We
Yeah.
need to be able to say, like, is this thing normal? What do I do when this happens, right?
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
don't.
And to be met with compassion and not judgment. But okay, this might be like me on my little soapbox for a minute, but I think that mothers are always so fearful, regardless of whether you're neurotypical or neurodivergent. I think we're also scared of judgment that we omit those challenges. And so when we are in a mom group, we may be presenting as if things are very perfect, like the blueberry in the very white space. We may be presenting like things are perfect when in reality they're not, but we're too afraid to say, actually, there was a muffin explosion in my kitchen this morning and I haven't had the time to clean it up because baby then had a diaper explosion. I had to go deal with like we're not as honest with each other. And it's like this unwritten competition that we can sometimes be in. And I know that was my experience when I was a mom. It was like those moments where I'd be like, oh man, like I can't get my baby back into its regular routine after going through a sleep regression. And then other parents being like, oh, well, we didn't have any problems. My baby was perfect. My baby was able to adapt. And it's like, are you actually being honest here? Like, why can't we meet in like a more human to human connection by supporting each other through those challenges and not feeling like we need to one up each other? And so I'm off my
It's so
soapbox now,
true.
but
I so true. No, it's the soap I'm listening to you and I'm thinking about when my daughter was she was a competitive dancer. And this means waking up at a crazy hour of the morning and
Mhm.
putting like false lashes on a child's face, a neurodivergent child at that, and putting their hair in a tight bun with no hair showing, right?
Mhm.
It's a setup for a parent to lose their cool. And it's a setup for a kid to lose their cool. And I remember sitting with the moms in the like the lounge at the dance studio and confessing this story where I got mad at my daughter and I made her like wash her hair again under cold water. And I was like ready to lose my mind, and she was too. And I
Yeah.
was like, I'm just done parenting in this moment. And everybody started coming forward with
Mm.
their stories. And this one mom was telling about how her daughter, she got all the makeup on and something happened. The daughter cried. And then she had
Oh,
black
no.
all over her face. And the mom freaking out took a wipe. And then it was like, like makeup crime scene. But we were all like, oh my God, I've never told those stories to other people.
Yeah.
And actually, what came out of it was us saying, why do we do this alone?
Yeah.
Why do we sit in our hotel rooms at these competitions at these crazy hours in the morning alone?
Mhm.
Why don't we do this together? And so we did. And this magic happened because while I couldn't put false lashes on my daughter, my friends, my her friends, her dance mates' mom could.
Right.
And we could tag with each other, and the girls were supporting each other and the moms were supporting each other, and we had this community, and we were
Mm.
like, why have we not been doing this? And so what happened when we told those awful stories that were so shameful was community and
Yeah.
connection, and then we could handle it, right? And
Hmm.
so I think that's what always breaks my heart with ADHD moms is they feel like they're not a part of the mom club, and
Hmm.
they can't disclose the things that they're struggling with because other people are like, what are you talking about? and and
Yeah.
and and then they end up isolating more, right? Yeah.
That's so beautiful, though, because communication does build community and connection. And it all starts by one person being vulnerable or kind of at their limit to be like, okay, here's honest time. This happened.
Hey,
And
this is what happened.
yeah, and it
Cold
causes
water
other
shower
people,
in the morning.
but it causes other people to like feel, okay, so one person shared. It's safe maybe for me to share my having to
Right.
scrub my daughter's face
Instead
with
of
the
being
cloth.
in shame around that, we are
Yeah.
laughing, and then
Yeah.
we're saying, well, we don't want to do that again. And
Yeah.
how could we do it different?
I
Yeah.
love that. I
Yeah.
love that so much.
What we need to do with each other,
We
right?
do. We do.
Yeah.
You touched a little bit on, I mean, we've touched a little bit on this already, but um, our kiddos are learning how to regulate their emotions through us. It's not something they're born with, it's something that they kind of need to learn. But when a mom has ADHD, how does ADHD impact emotion regulation when they're having to deal with their children?
Like wildfire.
Yes.
They have to children, there's this saying from, I can see his face. Ross Green, who's an American psychologist, and he says that children borrow your frontal lobe,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
But if you have a problem with your prefrontal cortex, which is, that is different in ADHD, right? And it's kind of where your executive function lives.
Hmm.
It's pretty hard to rent it out sometimes
Yeah.
because it's overtaxed itself. So, because of the neurology with ADHD, about that. Um, like when we're stressed out, that part of the brain, that frontal cortex, is meant to stand down so we can be in reactivity, right? Like if the bear is
Hmm.
running behind you, you don't want to think about going left or right, right? You just want to run the heck out of there, right? And
Yeah.
that's what that really fast reactivity or what we call emotional dysregulation is all about, right? In ADHD, for several reasons. One, because that prefrontal cortex is differently developed.
Hmm.
It stands down more easily, which means more easily triggered. And the connection between that prefrontal cortex and the amygdala, the threat detector in the brain, is also, I always say, like, this is the brakes up here, and that's your brake line. And so you got kind of crummy brakes and you got a leaky brake line, which means you feel emotion really big. And that can be advantageous and that can be problematic. It could be like you get into your reactivity and it's like a computer virus that is just gobbling up all the RAM and you can't do anything else, like regulate your child. So you could get overstimulated and you could get emotionally stimulated because of your child's dysregulation, right?
Yeah.
What a lot of women try to do with ADHD is they try to think their way or breathe their way through that. And it's a little bit like trying to use a bucket to catch a tidal wave. So,
Hmm.
what I often say to my moms is you have to know how to work with your nervous system and
Yeah.
um, trying to like calm yourself down or try to like I don't know, breathe your way through that, probably not going to be really helpful for you in that moment. So often what we're talking about is like more of a body-based way or bottom-up way of regulating your nervous system, right? So like you're watching me on the video right now and I'm doing a little bit of a rock. I also have a swivel chair. But I always say like get it in your body, right? Like if you need to kind of like take you need to kind of do some push-ups or you need to do like some jumping jacks, you need to let your body do this, you need to like get that in your body to
Hmm.
try to regulate the emotion before you try to deal with your kids. Get good at kind of catching yourself when
Hmm.
that's happening. The other thing that I often say to people is start to learn to let your kid know what's going on, especially as their language starts to develop. When they're babies, this can be a little trickier, but actually,
Yeah.
babies understand the emotional language anyway, right? So when we start to put words to our emotional experiences, then we also help our children put words to theirs. So, like, mommy's really worked up right now, and maybe you think I'm really mad at you, but I'm not. I'm just really freaking out right now. We start to describe what's happening in our nervous system rather than
Hmm.
trying to stop it, which could
Yeah.
feel like trying to slam the brakes on when you're careening down the highway. Not good for the car, and probably going to make you crash, right? Rather than that, you start to learn how to talk about it. So I often will say, like, instead of acting out the energy, describe the energy. And it's amazing what happens, because what you'll start to see is little kids also starting to do the same thing back.
Yeah. You're
So they're
modeling.
learning from mom, right?
Hmm.
And we're also sending a clear signal, right? This is what this emotional signal is all about. It's not because I don't love you. Right?
Yes.
Which is what most kids, when they're having their big reactions, are fearing, that you're mad at me, I've disappointed you,
Hmm.
um, uh, uh, um, oh, you don't care about me, you don't love me. And that's very
Hmm.
threatening for us as human beings when we think that the person who's wired to love us
Yeah.
isn't, right? And then that causes their big reaction. So I often will, like, kind of help moms with that. We also know, and you mentioned it before, that part of those big emotions within an ADHD aren't actually relational experiences. So
Hmm.
a good example would be like relational meltdown, or relational, what we often refer to as a temper tantrum instead of a meltdown,
Hmm.
would be like your kid's really not listening to you. You've told them 100 million times not to do the thing, and they're doing the thing. And you're getting louder to try to get through to them, and they're not having it.
Yeah.
That is you getting dysregulated because you can't get through to your kid. A temper
Hmm.
tantrum. It's relational,
Hmm.
right? Um, or they come up to you and they say, "You're the worst mom ever. I hate you, mommy." That's going to trigger you, right?
Yeah.
It's relational. What do you mean? I do everything for you, right? We get big, we get loud because it's hard to
Yeah.
deal with, right? But for ADHD moms, sometimes it's not relational at all. It's actually a meltdown, which is sensory, right? It's like you can't
Hmm.
handle your environment. It's too loud, it's too stinky, it's too touchy, it's too chaotic, it's too
Hmm.
messy, it's too everything. And a meltdown it looks the same. It looks like anger on the outside, but it's really, that energy is really about trying to get out of the environment fast because it's intolerable.
Yeah.
So sometimes in terms of that piece, like, we're actually trying to do some preemptive work with our ADHD moms and helping them identify that. And it's really about modifying your environment and trying to find out how can you give yourself the input that your body needs on a regular basis so you're not getting to that intolerable place. And
Hmm.
how do you talk to, the other adults in your life, like your partner, or maybe your supports, like extended family? How do you talk to them about needing maybe a little bit more support around some of those times? Like, I know after 7 p.m. at night, I'm much more likely to melt down. This is where I'm going to yell a lot more. Could you take over bath time? Because I find bath time really hard to cope with. It's echoey in there,
Hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
and I don't want my kid to remember mommy always yelled when they got in the bath, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes it's that around the how do you regulate yourself in relation to your kids, right?
Hmm. And it's also awareness of noticing when there is like, is it because of a stimulant or is it reactional? And so kind of paying
Mm,
attention to how it shows up for ourselves. I know when I'm cooking and one kiddo's trying to talk to me and the TV is on and my partner's listening to something on his phone, I'm like freaking out.
yeah. Yeah,
All of you need to get out
you're
of
not
here.
gonna be nice mommy in that moment.
Yeah, no, no. And again, like once I'm able to catch that and recognize that that's why, then it can become more of a request. I need somebody to turn the volume down, or can you keep stirring the pot? I need to like to get a little bit of space. And so it helps to give us like the words that we need to communicate with the people around us.
Or even jigging your environment. Maybe this is the time where you're going to put in your noise canceling headphones. Maybe it's the
Yep.
smell of the food that's really getting to you, and you're going to wear a necklace, and you're gonna put the smell that you want to smell that's on the necklace, or you're going to wipe it
Hmm.
on your shirt so that you can change your input to be able to cope in the
Yes.
environment. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Headphones are wonderful. Audiobook, music, just nothing but just hearing like all the
You're
external noise
controlling your
muffled.
environment so that you
Yeah.
can manage the environment. And, often what we also see around the regulation stuff, because if you're a neurodivergent, there's a good chance you got a neurodivergent kiddo too, because the main cause of ADHD is genetic, right?
Hmm.
So there's a good chance you got a neurodivergent child too, right? And they may be sensory seeking or sensory avoiding as well. Like they want to slam on you and they want to give you a hard hug when you don't want to be touched. So we're
Yeah.
often talking about how do you give input to you and them so that you're both getting your
Hmm.
sensory needs met in a way that can help. Like, so for
Yeah.
example, if they're like my son used to burn around the table in the morning when I needed dark and quiet, right? So we got him a
Hmm.
wiggle seat, right? So he could have a little party on his butt and move
Yeah.
around like he needed to move around to feel good. And I could have the still that I needed to feel good. So we often
Hmm.
are trying to help people like, how do you give one input to one person and another input to another person so we can all live together?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And something that I hear from a lot of parents too is the like the pressures externally. And so if people are running late for something, or if people don't feel comfortable with being late for things, whether that's school or work or I don't know, a party, and kiddos are kind of starting to act up, that can be really overwhelming. And so how can ADHD affect kind of routines, structure, timing, consistency?
Time is slippery for a lot of ADHDers.
Yeah.
Um, and I will also say, I was like so struck by this, right? Medication doesn't help with time.
Hmm.
It's the one thing, the one ADHD symptom where you have to entirely rely upon strategies to
Yeah.
try to manage it, right? So if time is hard for particular, the other thing I want to say is like some people might have ADHD and might not struggle with some of these things that you're talking about
Hmm. Yeah.
because like functioning is kind of spiky, right? So like where I have a lot of moms I work with that have initiation problems, like they're like sitting on the couch thinking about doing the thing all day long and ruminating on it, but they can't get up to do the thing. I don't
Hmm.
have initiation problems. There's like no flies on me. Everyone's eating my dust when it comes to getting stuff done, right?
Hmm.
That's not my issue. Time is a huge issue for me, and I have a house of clocks, right? I have stuff all over the place. So, these are like where maybe like taking learning a little bit about it. But I think with ADHD mom and especially in this like young kind of period of time,
Hmm.
strategies take time to learn and
Yeah.
experiment with and alter and figure out what works for you and what doesn't work for you. It's definitely not a one size fits all kind of formula.
Hmm.
And it's something that you have to learn. And learning can be harder for people with ADHD because of some of the other executive function stuff, right? So I have
Right.
to say, like, I just really want a lot of compassion for you and a lot of understanding. And, can you tell the key people in your life you're working on this, but it's harder for you? And can you help? What are the conversations you need to have around you for people
Hmm.
to understand this isn't because you're rude, right? For people
Yeah.
to understand this isn't because you're lazy. You're probably working at trying to get out of the house on time more than the average person is, right? And
Yeah.
at the best of times, Yvonne, getting little kids out the door is like herding cats, right?
Yes, it is. Oh man. Yeah, it's challenging regardless of like what's
Yeah.
happening. Kiddos are put your boots on. Nope, one boot's on, but then they have to run off to get something. It's hard getting out the door sometimes.
It's hard for everybody to get out the door, and
Yeah.
it's harder when it's hard to prioritize and plan and get out the door and try to get out the door and try to figure it out. And So what I often will say is like, yes, if that becomes a priority and that's something that a project you really want to work on, it is not a task. It doesn't just take one step and you're going to be done.
Yeah.
It's not the kind of thing where 3 weeks of building a habit is going to mean like in 3 weeks, you're going to be so good at being on time. It's not funny. There's
Mm-hmm.
probably a lot of complexities around why time is difficult for you. And we have to understand all of those pieces of it. It's not just about monitoring time, there's other things that can affect it. And
Mm-hmm.
if it's a project you want to work on with many steps, then to understand and give yourself grace, give yourself a good 6 months to get that down if that is really important to you. And
Yeah.
let the people that are around you know um, that this is tricky. And we as therapists can also be really helpful. I remember my colleague doing this, and I've done it once too. um, she wrote a dear family note letter saying what she was working with on the with the client and why it was important for them to support her. It was like 2 lines. It was respectful, and
Mm-hmm.
she put it on the fridge. And they were like, "Oh," she had been trying to tell them. But when the family saw the note from the therapist, "Dear family, um, this is what I'm asking you to do," they were like, "Oh, okay." And they supported her. So sometimes
Yeah.
we can be the voice for our client that validates, I need your help,
Yeah.
right? So we can also be creative supporters to our clients.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we've been focusing a lot on like the struggles, the challenges, the
Mhm.
difficulties, but I think there's also, strengths that ADHD moms bring to parenting. So what are some of those strengths?
Yeah. Thank you. The research on ADHD, on ADHD child outcomes are really like negative on the moms. They don't focus on the dads.
Mm-hmm.
They put ADHD moms down in the worst kind of way. So thank you for asking that. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So a bunch of things. One, um, we tend to not lose our creativity. We tend
Mm-hmm.
to keep a childlike lens on the world. I can tell you because I do play therapy with parents and children. And when I have an ADHD parent who's playing with the kid, it's the best kind. They're just like
Oh,
right there, down on their kids' level, right in their little kids' creative world. And it's like they get it. They can just dive right in and
yeah.
be a kid with their kid. And you see these children just so fired up and so
Mm.
validated that the person who loves them is really hearing them, right? So we can do that. We can really like dive in and be silly, think outside of the box. Um, and I think those are the things, like, I think at the end of the day, when I die, if their eulogy is like, and mom got us out of the house on time and the house was always in order, I'm like rolling
Yeah.
over in my grave if that's my eulogy. Like, I
Yeah.
want them to tell the story about when we did like target practice on their faces with grapes, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's the story I want to tell them about, right?
Yeah.
Where we were doing goofy stuff. I want to tell them to tell a story about when it was the middle of the winter and they missed the summer picnics and we had picnics and I made a hamburger cake and we ate the hamburger cake before we ate the dinner
Yeah.
downstairs in the basement on that's what I want them to tell the stories of, right? Of
Yeah.
when things were silly and fun. So the creativity, the not losing the ability to be a child and stay a child. um,
Mm.
ADHD moms tend to be extremely sensitive and they can pick up the vibe very quickly. So there's like this kind of attunement, like kids kind of saying I'm fine, and mom's like, oh no, everything inside my body's not buying it,
Mm.
right? Something's off. Something's off with my baby. I'm not buying. The doctor says they're okay, but something inside of me is saying, something's going on here, right? So
Mm.
there's this like kind of like spidey sense, intuition, that can lead to actually really beautiful emotional regulation because maybe we can open up conversations with our children that other people might pass by,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Um, I think also if you've gotten to adulthood this far um, without your diagnosis, you've learned how to persist in the face of difficulty
Yeah.
and you've had to grind more than most.
Mhm.
And that a lot of parenting is like that. It's like a marathon, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a marathon of giving and there's not a lot of water tables along the ride. And
Mhm.
so this kind of like persistence, this kind of like grinding in the face of adversity is something also I see so much of. And
Yeah.
maybe underestimating the strength of that, right? I also
Mhm.
think that in general, there is like this injustice sensitivity that comes with ADHDers,
Yeah.
right? Like where everybody else is like, oh, don't pay attention. They got their heads down. Our heads are up and saying, that's not okay over there, but that's happening, right?
Yeah.
That makes us really good advocates for our kids. Like, get me an ADHD mom at the doctor saying, no, my kid needs this, or at the daycare saying, no, that's not okay, or at the school saying, no, that's not okay. And we're advocating for our children and we're making change happen for them when it's necessary.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
to me is also a beautiful thing that you see from our ADHD moms and their parenting.
So many superpowers within the ADHD, like within ADHD moms. And it's important to point those out because again, so many, outside noise can kind of come in to be, or internal noise that we've kind of are repeating to ourselves about how this is actually putting us down or a weakness or it's not making us good enough, but to kind of recall those connections, those, having fun, being creative, kind of being that childlike, being able to be childlike with your kiddos and the advocacy thing, those are really important things and something that we should value as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to kind of go into like speed round questions here,
Okay.
what are some realistic coping strategies for ADHD moms?
There's no time when you're a mom. So identifying your sensory profile can be very meaningful because what it
Yeah.
involves is in environmental shifts and changes. Like there's not, earplugs are great and they don't take a lot of work to learn about how to, they either work or they don't work,
Yes.
right? So, like a weighted blanket to sleep. If that works for you put it on and it works and you're not
Hmm.
having to maintain it as a method to help you feel better, right? So learning about your sensory profile, learning how to modify your sensory profile, being curious if your sensory profile is different, like you're needing than your kid, if they're needing a lot of
Hmm.
input when you're needing low input, and then getting curious about how can I do both, like
Yeah.
my son and his wiggle seat. I had a
Yeah.
mom who she needed low stim at the end of her day and the kid needed high stim. She had a t-shirt she wore. She would lie on the ground. It had roads on it and he would drive cars on her back.
I love that.
Fabulous. Kid
Yeah.
loved it. She loved it. And
Yes.
so, like, trying to find those ways of giving both input. Sometimes it could be the music that you're playing that's going to hit both. It's going to
Hmm.
feel regulating and soothing for you, but it's going to feel activating for the kid. So, trying to figure out those kinds of things. So that one we find is very, very important for our
Hmm.
ADHD moms because there's no time,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
when you know what your sensory input is, you just dial it up.
Hmm.
Second thing I would say is learn how to pace. So, what we typically do on a good day is burn all of our neurons. We do too much. We do more than we should. I was going to clean the house today, and now I have cleaned out the entire garage and all the crawl spaces in my home. I have
Hmm.
labeled everything, and it's the end of the day. My back hurts, and I can't do anything else. And I didn't go to the washroom.
Yeah. Yeah.
So pacing means dialing back on the days when you've got a lot of energy and doing less, and dialing up a little bit on the days when you have low so that you can kind of do it over time. We find that if you can
Hmm.
expend energy more conservatively over time like that, that you tend to have less highs and less lows. You tend to kind of go towards the middle.
Yeah.
Knowing what your hormonal profile is, especially if it's a big thing, and stacking executive function tasks if possible at the beginning of your cycle, not the end of your cycle, and getting more support.
Mm.
Um, Ask for help a
Yeah.
lot, and we can't. Accommodations are not legislated at home. I wish they were, but
Hmm.
they are legislated in the workplace. So if you're back at work, sometimes being able to fill your tank better at work by getting support at work for something that you might not normally get help at. You might burn your engines to do something or overfunction to do something in the workplace. Get the help at work because it's legislated. They have to by law,
Yeah.
so that you have a little more in the tank when you're at home.
Yeah.
Uh, Last but not least, convenience. Make things easy for you, right?
Hmm.
Like, let the normies save the planet. And opt for convenience, you know. If um getting the pre-cut vegetables makes it easier for you to manage the
Hmm.
dinner time, then do that. You're getting vegetables into your kid. Better that
Yeah.
than rotting vegetables. So like changing and being open to making life easier for yourself,
Yeah.
um,
Love
and more
those.
convenient. Yeah,
Hmm.
those are the things.
And you mentioned like ask for help, but how can partners or family actually provide the support when somebody does ask for help?
It has to be attuned. Nothing worse than someone helping you when it's not what you need. Like that's that
Yes.
unsolicited advice. It's really icky. So I think we are often talking about you got to get to know your own brain first and
Hmm.
what you need before you start to share with other people what would be helpful. But also
Yeah.
being really clear around that. And I often will say to couples, like I do ADHD informed couples therapy, and I often will say to them, like, even having a weekly meeting to talk about the week and what it needs to look like
Hmm.
can be really helpful to help you manage the household. So being able to talk like that, we often will say, like around mental load, it has to look a little different than a neurotypical family. So we typically can do better things if we're interested in it. So if you can stack household tasks that are interest based, um and maybe you're a great cook but you freak out every time you're cooking, like probably not the best task for you to do.
Hmm.
But maybe you really like doing the laundry, you like it, it's good, you're on top of it, like sort of shifting household according to interest if possible.
Yeah.
It's probably easier to sustain over time for the whole family system. So but I think it's about, you got to know yourself first, and you also have to be able to help others know like that I appreciate you helping, right? And yet this is what would help me. Can I let you know it would look like this?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when should someone seek professional support?
Like I'm gonna say we all need help.
Yeah.
And I would say before you think you need it.
Mm.
Uh-huh. By that I mean probably if you have ADHD or suspected ADHD and you're in this intensive stage of parenting, um, if it's not happening yet, it's probably because you're over functioning and that has a shelf life,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
We know that what comes from over functioning in brief spurts of time is major burnout,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and something we say to anybody, it's, therapy isn't when you're in crisis. It's for like a preventative measure, so getting support sooner rather than later is going to be the best.
hmm hmm
Yeah.
Around the 4 month period postnatally is when people start to often really know, like, I'm not doing okay here. At first
Yeah.
3 months is a little bit of a fog for everyone,
Yeah.
right? It's a little bit of like, okay, and all that. But somewhere around month 4, people start to really like, I'm not okay. So
Hmm.
being just attuned to how you're doing then. And then the other crisis point we see a lot is like when the kid turns into a toddler, right? And now they're
Yeah.
not like sweet little baby who goes along with most of what you say. They are talking back. They are
Mm,
saying no. And they are dying on ridiculous hills. Like, I won't have my meal unless it's on this color plate.
yeah. Yeah. Or sandwiches cut in triangles and not squares. Like, yeah,
And I
we hear
won't eat
you.
it.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
If there was like one thing that you would want a mother that's listening today who has ADHD, what would you want them to hear?
Oh, it's what I say in my video on our website, right?
Yeah.
The universe picked you for your kid.
Hmm.
And nobody, absolutely nobody, is wired to love your kid like you are. And nobody, absolutely nobody, is going to be better at doing this with your kid than you. And
Hmm.
don't forget it, right?
Hmm.
You are
Yeah.
their older, wiser other, and you are wired to love them. And you fell in love with them before they were born. And
Yeah.
don't forget it. On the bad days, remember that. They will
Hmm.
come, but remember it.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in that note, we'll kind of leave it. That was a very nice, that was a very lovely message. Thank you so much, Wendy. This was so informative. I feel like we could talk for hours and hours about this. But where can folks find you?
Sure. Well, I'm one of the therapists at Whole Family Psychotherapy, wholefamilypsychotherapy.com. Um, and there are two of us that specialize in ADHD. Both myself and Mandy Obrecht see a lot of moms with ADHD, especially at this sort of juncture.
Mm-hmm.
We are both ADHD providers. We are moms with ADHD, and we also both are perinatal mental health providers, so have that kind
Yeah.
of intersection, so they can find us there. Can I plug a few of the things that we do in our
Mm-hmm.
practice specifically
Yes,
for
please.
ADHD moms? So
Mm-hmm.
we also have a group. It's an 8-week group, up to 10 group members, called the ADHD Mom Collective. It runs on a regular basis, and it's super popular and
I love that.
wonderful. And it's a chance to, do a lot of stuff we're talking about here, but it's also a chance to to connect with other moms. And the magic that happens in that group is community, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like being able to talk to other people about these things that you probably aren't talking to other people about, and going, oh my God, that happens to me too. And it's just like really amazing
Mm-hmm.
to see moms kind of connect with each other about that. And then the other thing that we're doing, probably in about 2 months, I've done it before, but there's been some requests again, and I think we're hoping to kind of also regularly offer, for professionals, a neuroaffirming care workshop that I do
Oh,
with
wow.
professionals who work with this population, all allied health professionals, not just therapists,
Mm-hmm.
to learn about what are some of the ways that how can we understand this population, how can we support this population, in our care, regardless of our discipline.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another thing that we have running in our practice.
That's amazing. I'll make sure
Mhm.
to put all of that into the show notes below. So if
Cool.
you are a mom who's listening to this and really is learning a lot from this, maybe one of those groups would just kind of dive a little deeper into it. And not to mention, we all need community. So if we can meet with like-minded, people around us who are in it with us in their own way, it's really important.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much. I've appreciated you being here and sharing all of this amazing wisdom with us. And hopefully we'll have you back.
I would love that, Yvonne. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. And for our listeners, make sure to follow us on Outside the Therapy Room Pod. And we will see you next week. Bye. Thank you for listening to Outside the Therapy Room. This podcast is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. If you reside in Ontario and are interested in working with one of our therapists, please visit our website in the show notes. If you reside outside of Ontario, a quick Google search or search through Psychology Today will help you find a therapist near you.